Recently, I've been taking the time to dive into the DC Absolute comics. As an overall comics fan, I understand the hesitancy to read comics for the first time, especially with stories that I've been spanning for so many years. To be honest, I say I'm a comic fan, but I ain't really tapped in as a true diehard fan should be. There are some times where even I hesitate to read the comics because of how many there are out there. But the Absolute comics are a really good place for first-time readers and long-time fans. This is a nice retelling of our beloved DC characters with a darker and more grounded theme for each of the characters. I'm not here to spoil. I'm not here for a full in-depth analysis of the characters and their stories, no. This is just a sketch and rant. I'm just here to yap on what I think about the overall designs and changes made to some of the characters we know from the main DC timeline. So other than that, sit back, relax, grab some snacks. Sure, when was the last time I watched a spooky scary stuff? Okay. The comics I've read so far are just of the main guys, the big three, the top dogs, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. Seeing their designs for the first time way before the comics actually came out, I'm not gonna lie, personally, I was not that much of a fan. Batman, being as bulky as he is, wasn't a problem, and I kinda like the tethery look of his cape. But I wasn't a fan of the logo. I kinda was like, okay, we get that he's beefy, but you don't have to make the logo look that beefy too. Doesn't even look like a bat anymore, looks like a big block. It's only when reading the comics when the design of that logo made sense. I like Superman's design a little more, but at first glance, there wasn't a difference to what we were used to what I was used to seeing already. The only difference in this design is the glowing forearms and boots, and him looking Mexican. This doesn't mean it's a bad design. I'm just saying I didn't really feel it. I'm just saying it does kind of look like many of the fan redesigns I've seen before. But still, I like it. Looking at Wonder Woman for the first time, this is a design I instantly fell in love with. I don't know, man, there's just something about the design that just stimulates neuron activation. Before I talk more on this immaculate design, let me explain a little something. Remember, there's nothing right or wrong I'm trying to push here. No, this is why I feel character design wise, Absolute Wonder Woman's is the best. I really am a big fan of character designs that have good style with an amount of realism and detail that tells you the overall image and vibe about the character and why the character has on what they have on, just by looking at the design alone. So in other words, I like when the design looks good and there is a why to all that the character has on them. And answering those whys that come up should tell you visually the type of character this is. So just by looking at the character, it should be able to look good and make sense at the same time. That's what I really like. For Batman, I want you guys to imagine someone. Imagine someone who has never heard of the idea of Batman at all. This person does not know who Batman is at all. Has never heard of, doesn't know anything about Batman. I am not too confident that someone like this will be able to look at the design of Absolute Batman and will be able to tell, at least visually, that this is a bat-themed superhero. Yeah, the ears on the head do point in that direction of making it look like a bat-themed superhero. But what do you really have when you remove the ears? The cape at sometimes can point to other directions, especially when at times they look more like jagged tentacles than a bat's wings. And that block for a logo definitely does not help. When you think of a bat, thick, blocky shapes do not come to mind. With Absolute Superman, yes, there is enough to tell that this is a super abled hero. I'd even go as far as to say the S on his chest is enough to make someone who has no idea of the character of Superman seeing this for the first time and being like, you know, this looks like some kind of super abled man, a Superman by chance. But like I said before, other than the glowing forearms and boots that do look cool, there ain't really much about this design that stands out from what we are used to. This just feels like another fan redesign that would throw the community Twitter. What? This just feels like another fan redesign that will throw the Twitter community in a fit, throwing their fists in the air in anger just at the slightest inclusion of diversity. But still, I want to stress, I like this design. Now, with Absolute Wonder Woman, you don't need any knowledge of Wonder Woman as a character whatsoever to be able to tell that this is a warrior princess. The detail and props on this design visually speak for themselves, contributing to the design well. Why does she have armor, you ask? Well, warriors and fighters are well known for wearing armor like this, so she must be some type of warrior. Oh, you're asking why she has a big sword? Well, warriors do need weapons to fight, and looking at the size of this blade, not only does it give us a sign of the size of whatever it is she does fight, it does point to her being a strong and broly character. I mean, look at her physique. You can also see that in her height and muscle definition. Why is she a woman, you ask? What, you don't think women can fight? What are you trying to say? Or you want to know what's with that crown on her head? Well, crowns are worn by those in royalty, and looking at the size and design of the crown, it looks like the character is also some sort of member of royalty, a princess perhaps. The detail you get from a design should be able to answer surface level questions and visually point out the type of character you're looking at, but there still should be some level of intrigue and unanswered questions that make you want to know more about the character and eventually decide to dive into the story. Like I said before, the armor illustrates her as some type of warrior, but why this shape specifically? And yes, the marking seen on her arm makes sense, as some warriors do go into battle with various markings on them. But why these markings specifically? Those questions you get answered by diving into the story, by reading the comics. I'm not saying that the other designs aren't cool or that they fall off just because some of the detail only makes sense once you read the comics. No. What I'm saying is, of the top 3, I feel Wonder Woman's design fills more into her character design trope than the others do, which I feel, because of that, makes it look more interesting. Let me tell you the other reason why Absolute Wonder Woman's design is my favorite. And I will say, in comparison to what I said before, to the reasons that I said before, we do start to get a little more biased here. But I hope you still will be able to understand where I'm coming from, what I'm saying, and why. Okay, so one of my favorite character design tropes in fiction is the warrior princess type, or the warrior female. Some examples I like are Merida from Brave, Astrid from How to Train Your Dragon, Tigress from Kung Fu Panda, and Mizu from Blue Eye Samurai. Wonder Woman is a good example of a female warrior or a warrior princess type character. But before the Absolute comics came out, I wasn't really fond of her, man. She was not the first character that came to mind when you said the trope warrior princess. For me, she'd probably be number 60 or something. I was not fond of her, bro. This is because I did not really feel the relevancy of Wonder Woman as a character, as an overall character. I wanna lightly talk on her character before I talk on her design. Let's first take a look at the top boys in the Avengers. In media, we have gotten a good amount of focus on these characters to know and relate to their strengths, flaws, values, who they are as characters individually, and how the whole team is greater than the sum of their parts. With the top 3 of the Justice League, I can say the same thing for Batman and Superman as characters. But it's hard to see that attention on and love for Wonder Woman as a standalone character. Something that is used to see the attention on a character, that is used to highlight the flaws, values, development, etc. of a character, is the attention put on the abstract thing or characters that are in conflict with that character. It's good to have someone stand in opposition to our protagonists, which in this case of our superheroes, these standing in conflict are the villains. To make a shining diamond, you gotta put it under a little bit of pressure. You need someone that forces these heroes to stand as they should and love them as they are meant to be loved. This is one of the many things I feel makes a superhero more memorable, and is part of why Batman and Spider-Man are the 2 most memorable superheroes. Gun to the back of your head, give me one Wonder Woman villain. besides Cheetah. You see, some of you guys didn't even know Cheetah was a some of you guys don't even know who Cheetah is. As little as people know of Cheetah, outside of the comics, she has been seen in a few animated movies and series, so she's not completely unknown. Personally, I've seen the most from her in the Injustice 2 game. Now hold on, before you start typing in the comment section, let me explain something. As important as villains are to a superhero's development, it's not the only thing used to bring that level of development. Wolverine is another character that would be hard to come up with more than one villain for them on the spot. But the reason why we love Wolverine more than we love Wonder Woman is because we actually see what he goes through as a character and the abstract challenges that develop his character. When it comes to Wonder Woman, very little lore shows that good development of her character, and a lot of the lore that we do see is just a bland character that is used to glaze Superman, or just the biggest pile of dog shit. I ain't even watched the Wonder Woman 1984 movie, but hearing what a lot of people were saying and just watching the first few minutes, I knew I was not gonna waste my time on that. But let's talk about the other part of this problem, because this is how in most media we see Wonder Woman just ends up being an alternate partner for Superman, or just a Superman glazer. I'm gonna go back to Injustice 2. Even though this is not the main timeline, because it is a good example of what I'm talking about, and even though it is not the main timeline, somehow there are some times where it does manage to overshine the main timeline, Wonder Woman, and what we know of her. There are just some points in the game where I felt that Wonder Woman, amongst the others in Superman's regime, was the most dedicated to what the regime was trying to achieve. As dedicated, or even more dedicated than Superman even was, when it just made no sense. Yeah, I got a little spoiler warning here, but not for the game Injustice 2 itself, but the whole origin, the whole reason why this timeline exists. By looking at Wonder Woman's core beliefs and values as a character, and by the fact that it was Superman that was the most effective, we understand why Superman wants what he wants. He was put into a genjutsu and put his wife with an unborn child in their crisp breezy treatment and was tricked into blowing up Metropolis. But what happened to you? Yes, I'm talking to you, Wonder Woman. What happened to you to be as equally driven? At least wipe your mouth when you're done. My goodness. Now, to be honest with you, I think a bit of this glazing can be seen in her main DC timeline design as well. What I'm about to say right now, it's kind of majority bias and something more personal. It's honestly more personal, but I hope you can at least see what I'm talking about. When it comes to design, a color palette, the color palette you use plays a big part. I'm not saying that you should never find two random superheroes or two random characters with the same color palette, but when you have a character that is already lacking in lore development compared to her other two teammates in the top 3, and she shares a color palette with one of those two teammates, there's nothing that really sticks out or stands out about her like there is in her other teammates. To me, it doesn't help when being in the top 3, you are matching color palette wise with one of your teammates, like all colors. This is kind of why I also liked the DCAU Wonder Woman design a bit more than the main DC timeline design. So color palette wise, I don't like how similar at times it can look to Superman's. Besides that, I'm not really a fan of a warrior princess who is involved in fighting, battle, conflict. Going to fight in basically was just a gymnast or a swimsuit. I feel like her main design and a lot of other heroine designs, both in DC and in Marvel, get to the point where I'm just like, oh, alright buddy, there's no need to cut it that high up the leg. Hey, alright pal, alright. We get it, you are fairly fond of the rear end of the female gender. And hey man, I can't lie, I am too. But it gets to a point where it's just too much, man. I'm like, what you doing out here with all this? It's this focus on gooning material that I don't like, man. Where it starts to break the realm of reality, man. It's this focus on gooning material that even makes it hard to keep Instagram these days, man.
Whoa, hold on, wait, whoa, time out, bro. I just reinstalled the app, bro. I legit just reinstalled the app. This is ridiculous.
But I hope you guys can understand why I think the absolute Wonder Woman design is the best amongst the top 3. Reading this comic has been a lovely introduction to the character with lore that is good development for her character, especially for the number of issues that are out. But especially on the design, it's things like seeing the color scheme on her that makes her design stand out in her own way. It's things like getting to see new depictions of her physique and stature that feed into her design. I mean, she is tall, bro. And it's things like seeing a female warrior finally have a good amount of armor and covering on them that allows them to be mobile and shielded at the same time, without seeing borderline gooning material that we're already used to seeing nowadays. That just feels like a breath of fresh air. But let me know your thoughts, whether you agree or disagree, and why, down in the comments. Still, it's always refreshing to see a new take on a character we've known for so long. You know, not for Batman though. Do you expect me to believe that this is absolute Joker? Me bomba! Someone tell Venom to take off that costume. He is not fooling anyone.